Do you have a hard time saying no to others when you really should? Do you tend to put others' needs ahead of yours, even to your own dismay? Well, this psychologist may have some good explanations as to why, as well as what to do about it. Coming right up. Hi out there. This is Dr. Brett Pearce, and I'm a child psychologist, but I'm coming at you today with a personal development video. That is to say, where I don't really talk about child psychology per se, but rather just some common challenges that I think pretty much all people face, as well as what to do about them. And today we're talking about the subject of saying no to others, family members, friends, bosses, coworkers, things like that. Some of the common scenarios where I see this as a problem is when people tend to over-obligate themselves, or they find that they are saying yes to things that they really, really don't want to do, don't need to do, and really need to say no to in order to live a happier life. It's understandable when we care for other people, and in fact, so much of our culture, at least here in America, places a lot of emphasis on a kind of like surface level harmony with others, which is to say there's a sort of polite niceness that, at least on the surface, that really needs to be maintained, sometimes at almost any cost, sometimes really high costs, when you're talking about some pretty intense situations. But some of the more common ones are things like family obligations and obligations to friends, where people have a hard time saying no. The usual culprit in situations like this are painful feelings like guilt, shame, and fear. People tend to feel bad about themselves when they decide to disappoint someone or to do something that could potentially be disappointing to someone. And this subject comes up a lot around the holidays. The holidays are a great time to have fun and celebrate and to connect with family and friends. And yet at the same time, it's a very, very busy season, and a lot of people feel very stressed and frantic by it and don't seem to get a lot of enjoyment out of the holiday. Oftentimes, when I talk with people, a lot of this connects with feeling over-obligated, especially with obligations that they truly, in their heart of hearts, don't really want to, they don't really want to do, or want to do, I mean. I remember as a kid, what we would do for the holidays often would involve scrambling to go from house to house to house to house to house, to see relatives that we only saw once in a while, and there was nothing wrong with that per se. But for me, it was always a little bit overwhelming. And what was funny is that we as a family eventually came to realize that we weren't really enjoying the holidays as much as we thought we should, just because we were so over-obligated. But those traditions got maintained for years just because folks felt really bad about kind of limiting how much running around was going on. Certainly lots of other examples. You have people who maybe struggle to set limits with an employer about how much work is being done or what hours are being set. And the challenging thing is that when it comes to the subject of whose needs are being met, it's difficult for us to be in a position where we try to decide whose needs take more of a priority. Because it's easy in that situation when you're thinking of your own needs to regard your own needs as either less than or more than others. And I would make an argument that your needs, as far as you're concerned, are usually where you should place your focus, and they should take priority. But when we're talking about at least very close family members and friends, perhaps it also works in many situations, though not all, to think of them on equal playing fields, where we can sit down and say, all right, we both have needs, and what are the ways that we can address these needs together in a more of a collaborative way? Because inevitably, no matter what choice is made, both parties' needs are going to be addressed or not addressed. And someone's going to be happy and someone's not going to be happy unless there's a way for us to come to a conclusion that works together. Another thing that often happens is that people feel really afraid of the consequences of saying no. Many people, and this is understandable because it can be very intense and important, but many people feel very frightened of other people being upset or feel like there will be big repercussions or something like that. And surely in some situations there really can be, when we make decisions that other people don't agree with, or if people feel hurt or upset by decisions that we are making. But when push comes to shove, fear of things like that can be a powerful controlling mechanism, even if people aren't necessarily intending to control you. But it certainly can be there, and it can be no fun. And we can eventually kind of paint ourselves into a corner where we find that we are continually putting other people's needs ahead of our own, not because we really want to and it makes us feel good, but because we're afraid of the consequences. So what's the path forward through all this? Well, first and foremost, it is very important for us to maintain healthy psychological boundaries with other people, which is to say, my feelings and needs are mine and they belong to me, and I am the one who's responsible for taking care of them. Your feelings and needs belong to you, and you are the one who is primarily responsible for taking care of them. Now, that does not mean that we don't care about other people's needs and feelings, particularly when we're talking about loved ones, family and friends. But when push comes to shove, we can't own the responsibility for other people's feelings and needs exactly. Sure, we could talk about situations like when we have kids and pets and things like that, or someone who maybe is in a circumstance where they can't care for themselves very well. Yes, all those situations, we could talk about the exceptions, but on a sheer technical level, no one has your feelings and needs but you. And that is true no matter what. They are yours. They belong to you. And it usually doesn't go well to expect other people to be the ones to take care of those needs. So step number one is with dealing with the difficulty of saying no to others when we really need to, lies in being able to clarify whose feelings belong to whom. Because it's very easy to feel like other people's feelings and needs belong to you, and that they're a function of you somehow. And the reverse can be true, where you start to place your personal power, which is to say your ability to make choices and to take ownership of how your life is going and how you're feeling and doing, where you place that on others. And again, we're back into that kind of catch-22 where we're expecting others to do that. Once you get clear on that, it makes it easier then to start to take action. And the action usually lies in saying no to things that you really, really feel like you need to say no to. And perhaps it's important to start with, if you're the kind of person, when it comes to important, big, but kind of stressful decisions, if you're more of a toe in the water, walk down the, steps into the cold pool kind of person, then maybe it works to start to make a point of saying no to a few not so important obligations that other people are trying to put on you. Or maybe they're not obligations, maybe they're just invitations to events or something like that. That maybe it's not too big of a deal and you probably would do it, but maybe you're saying no as a way of just practicing being okay with that and seeing that you can do that, and it usually doesn't turn into too big of a deal. If you're like me with things like this, and you tend to be more of a run and jump into the pool just to get it over with, and there's nothing right or wrong about either strategy in most situations, then maybe you need to start really asking yourself, what are the biggest and most important and most difficult things for me to say no to, so that I can just rip the Band-Aid off? Because with those Band-Aids, again, you can rip them off, or you can go kind of slow and easy, but somewhere in between usually is kind of overwhelming. So the bottom line is, saying no can be a very, very important part of personal development. Many people do a lot of things with their lives, or they don't do a lot of things with their lives, because they are afraid of upsetting people, of feeling bad about themselves or guilty. They're afraid of, other kinds of repercussions. these things are understandable. When it comes to navigating close personal relationships, family, friends, important relationships with coworkers and bosses and things like that, it's perfectly understandable that it can be an important and stressful decision. But it is important to say no, because if other people deserve to have their feelings and needs attended to, then so do you. And you are the person who needs to first and foremost be behind the steering wheel for taking care of your feelings and needs, at least according to this psychologist. So at any rate, I hope this video was helpful. It's just something to think about. As I proceed forward with the channel, I'm probably going to be doing 1 or 2 videos a week that are about child psychology, and maybe 1 video a week that's more about kind of general personal development stuff. So stay tuned, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.